Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow business owners. My name is Daryl Guberman, the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We've been in business now 13 years. Our background, aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt with just about every industry. We have a Mr. Mike Whitaker, the head of the FAA right now, the Federal Aviation Administration. Between 2013 and 2016, Mr. Whitaker was deputy administrator at the FAA in bed with communist China. I don't make this up. I'm going to give him an education now, but this video today is about FAA Chief Mike Whitaker vows to hold the FAA Regulator Boeing 2009 to present accountable for safety violations. Yes, Mike, when I show you this to you, you don't know what's in your own back kitchen, and the people that were administrators before you caused the problem that you're suffering with now. Maybe you don't give a shit. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen, business owners. I do this to let you know that every time you get on a plane, due to their Boeing's 22 years of giving up source inspection per a supplier notification, we will show that to you. They were made an FAA regulator in 2009, which means that everybody, the lawyers of Ethiopian Air and Malaysian Air, and also the FAA themselves, how could you put the MCAS in there? It's impossible. Well, let me just tell you something. As an FAA regulator, Boeing was equivalent to the FAA. That means they are the FAA. That means Mr. David Calhoun, when he took over leadership, and by the way, in 2009, he sat on their board. He also sat on the board that gave Dennis Muhlenberg raises and all the rest of that mess. Maybe they were golf buddies. Probably so at that level. What else is there to do? There's not to run the company, because if I was a CEO of Boeing and the FAA gave me regulatory authority, I'd be down there with my sleeves rolled up, working with the people. Instead, he was probably out on the golf course. Let's face facts. On top of it, Dennis Muhlenberg got a 62.2 contractually signed exiting, I guess you can call it a bonus, for Ethiopian Air and Malaysian Air. I tell this to you because of integrity, honesty, and the truth, something that is compromised really badly, I think, with these gentlemen up here, except with Patrick Shanahan, the CEO of Spirit Aerospace or Aerosystems. When he was Deputy Secretary of Defense under Donald Trump, he was asked about the F-35 program, and he said the program is fucked up. Well, Mr. Patrick Shanahan, let me tell you, since Mr. Jim Tassett, the CEO, is there, I don't know if he's golfing today or not, who the hell knows, but I will say this. We have an article, it'll be down below the video in the description, that said, after their 801st F-35, they're still producing shitty aircraft with escapes, with rejections. So let me give Mr. Whitaker a little bit of an education here. Yes, you were intimately involved or indirectly involved with China. On top of it, you were intimately involved with Iran and Pakistan, two of the companies that sit on the International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware, no less. And as we all know, Iran is assisting Hamas with, actually they killed 3 servicemen, United States servicemen. So the FAA, being a member on ANSI, is probably culpable in this situation because, of association. Let's continue. You have ANSI. The American National Standards Institute is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation with federal agencies and corporations on board. I shall not give you the litany of mess here, but I will give you a brief cursory overview. You have Randy Doherty. At the time, he was the vice president of ANAP, chairman of the IAF, and also the principal on the IAF tax report, which means he handled the whole ball of wax. He handed over leadership to this guy who's been involved with our quality since 1994, Zhao Jinwu, who at the time he was also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services. He's also mandated by his country of origin, Communist China, to take our data. You like that, Mike? Also, here he is in Wuhan, China, giving a quality certification for laboratory accreditation. Well, let me just say this. In 2018, a contingency from the United States went to the Wuhan lab, and the Wuhan scientists were saying we do not have enough trained technicians. So he gave a certificate to a company that wasn't ready to get its certification by them not having enough trained technicians. In fact, in May of 2019 a CDC training document for virology labs in China, and the only one mentioned in this entire training document was Wuhan, China. It stated, and I quote, "The most important part of any biolevel 4 lab is to have properly trained technicians. They are the first line of defense for containment." We continue on. You have ANSI sitting on, actually ANAB sitting on ANSI's board. You will see that ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. ANSI ANAB are underwriters for the International Accreditation Forum. Thus, they are very close to the China leadership that was there between 2015 and 2021. And Mike, you were sitting as a deputy administrator of the FAA between 2013 and 2016. They were feeding you a bunch of shit like a mushroom, because if you didn't know this and you didn't rebel against it, then shame on you. You shouldn't have the position you have today. China had control over IAF, which is incorporated in Delaware, the International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia. ANSI and ANAB are underwriters, as you can see from this government standard operating work order. And here it is. It says ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum, which means, Mike, if there's any issue at Boeing, if there's any quality issues, doors flying off, wheels popping off, planes crashing, another person that is part of this contempt is the American National Standards Institute, run by Joe Batia, and also Russ Cheney. You have the attorney Jameson Carroll. These people are culpable in this situation of quality, along with the American National Accrediting Board, which they own. And here it is in 2018. There you go. Also, you have the factor that ANSI and ANAB sat on the on the China-led IAF between 2015 and 2021. Who sits on there equivalent in accreditation to ANAB is no more than Hamas, Iran, and also Pakistan, who harbored Osama bin Laden. So by you being a member, by the FAA being a member of ANSI ANAB, you have a very close tie to both Pakistan and Iran. Don't get me wrong, there's other accreditation bodies. And by the way, the accreditation bodies that sit on IAF are equivalent in accreditation to ANAB, and ANAB and ANSI take full legal responsibility for failures in the system. So, you know, I guess they certified those missiles that killed those 3 soldiers. Could be, possibly, maybe, because ANSI and ANAB are underwriters for Iran and Pakistan. What is that telling you? Are you condoning Hamas, Mike? Maybe. I know you were controlled by China between the times you were on there. You know, you can see that, and we're coming up to you pretty soon. Here's Boeing. Now, you have the Federal Aviation Administration on board right over by Boeing, okay? And they sat on ANSI's board between 2015 and 21. So, Mike, you're part of this issue and problem. You also have Boeing that sits on ANSI over by the FAA. And here you go, Mike. In 2002, Boeing gave up supplier certification, on-site audits to a piece of paper that are ANSI ANAB accredited. I know, I tried to get into those suppliers and they said, Daryl, we have to use ANSI ANAB. We'd love to use you, but we have to use it. Well, what do you want? Boeing sits on their boards, just like you do, the FAA. And here goes the real kicker. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, the title of this video is FAA Chief Mike Whitaker to hold FAA Regulator Boeing 2009 to President accountable for safety violations. These guys don't even know the function of their business. The FAA should be held accountable because you know why? Because they gave Boeing carte blanche. Let me read this to you. The FAA increased the authority of Boeing's commercial airplane division to self-certify its own aircraft. Doesn't that sound like regulation? They made them a regulator. Also, this solidifies it. The system allows Boeing employees to perform tasks on behalf of the FAA that include oversight and testing of product standards, along with certification of aircraft technologies and new aircraft designs. And here we go. This is their supplier portal. Boeing supplier portal requires ANSI ANAB. Why? Because they sit on the board, Mike, just like you do, just like the FAA does. They are a regulator and have been a regulator since 2009. So when you're talking about the MCAS system, you're talking about them skipping quality processes and standards, and the FAA vows to do something about it. They are the FAA. How can one regulator regulate another regulator? And here you go, Mike. Here's verification of my integrity. Boeing got caught fudging documentation along with their steel manufacturer. I never got any information concerning what parts they fudged, whether it was modulus of elasticity, tensile strengths, etc. Any sort of problem with the metals. It looks like there's a problem. They were fudging documentation on it. Who knows what it was? Also, most recently in their composite facility, the Bell Boeing composite facility, Mike, they were caught fudging documentation between the years of 2007 and 2018. What does that say about leadership? Was David Calhoun, was he caring about his company? Was Dennis Muhlenberg caring about his company? It appears that Dennis Muhlenberg, $62 million for killing 370 people. Big deal. That's basically it. The problem is they will tell you, the board of directors who have control, will tell you, well, it was contractually negotiated. They should have brought him to court and dragged it out, because that's what the judge does. And attorneys, if you had good attorneys, dragged the case out for 20 years. And Dennis Muhlenberg he wouldn't get his money. He would not get his money. But something, you play around too much on the board. A lot of these people do. Nikki Haley was on their board back then in 2019, but she didn't have any voting privileges. Also, Caroline Kennedy was on their board back then. That's it. I'm going to leave it here. I think I gave enough information to you, Mike. I appreciate you coming in from Washington, a deputy administrator of the FAA between 2013 and 16. Mike, you were involved with Communist China from your membership with ANSI. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, DARYLTQRS at yahoo.com. And remember this. The truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you, by David Foster Wallace. I thank you.